Hey, this is Jeremy with Strength in Numbers. We're going to talk today about the number one sexiest financial topic, insurance. I'm just kidding, but we are going to talk about the 7 kinds of insurance you should always have. Insurance. We hate to pay for it, but we would hate it even more if we didn't have it when we needed it. We're going to talk today about the 7 kinds of insurance you should always have and what each of those are briefly. And as we talk about these insurances today, I just want to remind you, I do not sell any financial products, including insurances, so I'm only here to tell you what's in your best interest. So first, we're going to talk about auto insurance. You may be probably required in most states to actually have auto insurance, but you need to make sure that not just do you have it, but you have the right amounts. How do you know if you have the right amounts? Well, the best way that I know is to get an independent broker and have them work with you to help you find the best insurance for your needs, not to just go to a captive agent. And we've talked about that in a previous video before. But that's the most important one off the top of the bat that everyone needs to have is auto insurance. So make sure that you have that in place, even if it's not required in your state. Second, is homeowners or renters insurance. If you own a home, you need to have homeowners insurance. If you own a condo, you need to have condo insurance. If you're a renter, you need to have renters insurance. Homeowners insurance is usually required by the lender if you've got a mortgage and often is included with the escrow. Condo as well is the same as well. And those are the types of things that sometimes they get put in place and people forget about them. But you need to make sure that you have the right coverage on those as well. That's another great topic for your independent broker. And the next one is renters insurance. Renters insurance is something a lot of people overlook. And there's a story I even heard once where a house burned down and the landlord went over there and was standing next to the person and just like, I'm so sorry this happened. And the renter turned to the landlord and said, so when do we get the money to buy our stuff? And the landlord looked at them and said, you don't. You have to have renters insurance to cover your own stuff. In fact, I couldn't even do that for you if I wanted to because legally I do not have an insurable interest in your stuff. So if you're renting, the landlord is not liable if something should happen to your belongings in that rental space. They're only responsible for the structure. So you need to make sure that you have a small policy. It usually costs somewhere between $15 and $30 a month depending on the coverage you've got. It's very, very inexpensive. And you need to have that coverage because God forbid $25,000, $40,000, $50,000 of stuff goes up in smoke and you're stuck. Next along these lines is a personal umbrella policy, also known as short as a PUP, P-U-P. What this is essentially is an additional policy strictly for increased liability so that if you're a homeowner and you have a property and someone gets damaged on it or injured on it, then you don't have to worry about getting sued. The business equivalent of this would be an LLC. And so you want to make sure that, God forbid, something tragic happens on your property, whether it's malicious or someone you know, that you're covered because a common perception is, oh, I don't have to worry about that. We're good friends. They're never going to file. But even if they don't want to, they could have significant medical expenses and they can't take care of those things themselves and they're going to file through the insurance company, which is then going to come after you. Having a PUP is going to protect you should you have a catastrophic event like that. And so it's very important to have that. And again, it's a very small cost, usually the price of a pizza or less every month. So look into a personal umbrella policy with your independent broker today. Fourth on the list is medical insurance. This is an absolute necessity in our day and age. If you haven't noticed, I could probably make a whole series of videos on medical insurance. It is ridiculously expensive for healthcare. It is marked up and we're going through the unholy trinity I call of the client or the patient and the provider and the insurance company, and they go round and round and round and round and round trying to get paid and saying, oh, you can only charge this much and that much. But man, if you don't have medical insurance, you could be up a creek. In fact, the number one cause of bankruptcy is medical expenses. So do not be without medical insurance. Even if you're a really healthy young person, you need to have at least catastrophic care in place. Even if you expect to be doing out of pocket on everything else, you still need to have that care in place, and there's different levels for that. I'm looking into doing a video on healthcare sharing ministries and all the differences between those. So watch out for that in the future. But get health insurance in place and make sure you're not without this extremely important coverage. No one today should be without medical insurance. Fifth on our list is long-term disability insurance. You absolutely should have this in place. Now, I'm an advocate of an emergency fund in lieu of a short-term disability policy, but usually short-term disability is provided through your employer, and long-term disability as well is provided, but usually up to a certain level. And long-term disability is often most inexpensive when getting it through a group plan through your employer, unless you're working for a very small company. But either way, you need to have long-term disability in place. And who's going to take care of you if you're disabled for the rest of your life and have no income, or you are out of work for a certain amount of time and you just don't have enough in savings, or you get injured but it's not lifetime and you can never do that kind of work again, you got to learn a new skill. Long-term disability is extremely important, and you need to have that policy in place, and it's usually very cheap. Okay, these last two are a little conditional based on your stage of life. So only if you meet certain criteria do you need these, but once you meet those criteria, you should always have these two insurances. So the first one is life insurance, and I talk about this in a totally separate video about what's the right kind of life insurance, and you'll see that linked here in the bottom of the video. I encourage you strongly to check that out, but you need to have life insurance if you have any dependents. So if you've got a child and or a spouse and the children, you need to have life insurance in place for the right amounts, 8 to 10 times your gross annual income, aside from whatever you may be provided through work. And make sure you watch that video for all the specifics on what kind of life insurance is best, why we need that much life insurance, and so on. So make sure that you have life insurance in place if you have dependents. If you don't have an insurable need for life insurance. And the last one we're going to talk about today is long-term care insurance. Long-term care insurance is also often known as nursing home insurance, but it's not just for your care in nursing home, it's also for your care through private care and in-home nursing and your own home. Long-term care insurance is extremely expensive sometimes, and you may be convinced to get into it before you need it, but it's better to use those dollars and invest them somewhere, make your money grow, and make those dollars work for you different ways than paying the high premium for extra years you don't need it, even though it's going to be higher in premium later when you do need it. Now, when do you need long-term care insurance? Statistics show that before you're age 60, your chances of needing nursing care are less than 1%. But once you hit 60, your 60th birthday, those numbers start to skyrocket, and you very quickly have a need for long-term care insurance. The average care for someone in that situation, in the end-of-life situation or elderly life, it's about $125,000 a year. So do you have $125,000 that you're self-insured through investments? Most people aren't, even those that are well off. And so I encourage you, make sure that you mark on your calendar on your 60th birthday, not a day later or a day earlier, to get long-term care insurance in place. This has been Jeremy with Strength in Numbers. I hope this has been helpful information for you. Stay tuned for more videos on these other insurances independently, and I hope that this has helped you keep your wallet heavy and your heart light. Take care.